Okay, is Barb ready to talk?
I guess.
Okay, you're on. And you aren't worried about pictures, right? You're not doing
No, I'm
pictures.
not worried about pictures. I couldn't figure out what to do about pictures. First of all, let me say that I've been to Italy 9 times. I've been to Rome 8 times, Florence 9 times, and a lot of other smaller trips, including driving on my own with a friend, and taking the train, and also on a U of M alumni tour of Tuscany. So I've had a lot of different experiences, and I don't know what kinds of experiences those of you who are interested in hearing about. But let me say first that if you're adventuresome, getting a car and driving around is really helpful, because you can go wherever you want, whenever you want. The problem with that is that whoever is driving doesn't get to see the scenery. So I learned that on a couple of driving trips, that whoever was driving was missing out on things. So then I resorted to going by train. And let me say that Rail Europe's system, where you can actually make reservations from home, is just an absolutely wonderful system. You can pick whatever trains you want, however you want. You can buy rail passes, and you can have reservations for trains, or you can just go to the station on the day you want to go somewhere and flash your pass and get on the train that you want to get on. So that's very, very important. If you like staying in one city and then going to another city just to visit and coming back to your home city. So that's one option. The other option is to stay like several days or a week in one city and then go on to the other places. And then, of course, another option is to take a tour. I have been on a number of University of Michigan alumni tours. Those are the only tours I've ever taken. But I found them to be very nice tours, mainly because they tend to let you unpack only one time. They take you to a particular city, and then you can go from there with tours out of that city. They also have some other tours where you move around a little bit more. I've never tried any of those. So I don't know particularly what people attending are interested in hearing most about. Tuscany, is that something people are interested in?
Sure.
I think that'd be good.
What?
Oh, the view. Gallery.
Sounds good.
Okay, Tuscany sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize in my early travels to Italy that when people were talking about Tuscany, they were Tuscany includes Florence and Pisa, which I think is was surprising to me, because I always thought of Tuscany as being the smaller towns up in the hills. But Florence and Pisa are also a part of Tuscany. And I've been to Florence quite a number of times. If you are an art person, the place to go to is definitely Florence. It rivals Paris in terms of the art that's available, that you can see. Although there are other places like Madrid and Barcelona that have wonderful art as well. The hill towns up in Tuscany, the only way you can get to them very conveniently is by driving around, or by the tour that I took. Otherwise, because of the hills, as I mentioned, whoever is driving doesn't get to see them, the scenery. Tuscany includes hill towns like Montepulciano, which has several wonderful wineries that you can visit. It also includes Siena, which is a really historic town with a center area where they have a horse race called the Palio, which I always found the Palio to be interesting, given that we had a Palio restaurant in Ann Arbor, but it's a horse race. I've also been to smaller, very, very small towns like Pienza. Pienza is famous because one of the popes was from Pienza, and so he built a church there, and so that there are lots of relics and things from that church within that church. But it's a very, very small town. You can walk around it in 15 minutes. And although I stayed there for several days, most of the time was spent doing travel to some of the other hill towns. Is there any particular hill town that anybody would like for me to expand upon?
Siena, I was in Siena, and this is sort of a warning. We parked at the edge of town, and when we got through walking through town, we forgot which of the 8 entrances to the town we were parked at.
Oh, wow.
And we described the entrance to the to one of the local restaurant owners, and he said, "Well, you just described all 8 entrances." He said,
Oh, God.
"How can you be so stupid?"
That was not nice.
We walked up and down all the entrances till we found our car. It was about 2.5 hours, and it was 90 degrees out.
Oh, gosh.
So you got to keep your wits about you if you're traveling. Don't lose track of where you are.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, the thing about tour groups is that they always tell you, where you're supposed to meet, and they give you the tour guide's phone number in case you get lost and don't know where to find the tour guide. And that is very helpful if you're a person that likes to be, shepherded around by somebody. And I found that particularly helpful in Tuscany. I don't know, with the number of small hill towns that I visited, I don't know if I would have wanted to be on my own. Even though I'm very adventuresome and I've traveled all over Europe on my own, even alone, to some places like Rome. The other places that you sometimes associate with Tuscany are Assisi and Perugia. Perugia, to me, isn't as interesting personally, but Assisi, pardon?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Well, yes, chocolate. I agree. And as long as it's bittersweet chocolate or dark chocolate, I like. But Assisi is particularly interesting, even though I don't profess to be a Catholic. The whole history of Assisi with some of the old Romanesque buildings that they have in the center of town are, it's very, very interesting. And of course, the church, the Church of San Francisco is very, very interesting as well. One anecdote about Assisi, I had been there on the U of M alumni tour and was really impressed, but we were only there, for a short time. So I decided I wanted to go back on another trip when I was there just in Italy with a friend. And so we left, it was like maybe late September, and we left Rome, and it was hotter than hot when we left Rome, and we got to Assisi, and
Okay.
it's up in the hills. And we discovered that it was really up there, and we weren't prepared. for a really cool town. But we had a hotel to stay in overnight, and we thought that was wonderful. We went to the hotel and discovered that even though it was really cold out, the hotel did not turn their heat on until November 1st. So we were in a freezing cold hotel room with the wind whipping around outside our windows, and there was no hot water in the bathroom. So that was a lesson learned. Maybe I should have done my homework a little better when I, since I didn't realize I was going to be freezing when I was in Assisi.
Yeah.
Are there towns? I remember a couple towns named Volterra and Cortona. Are those
Yes.
part of? Are those
Those
part
are
of?
also,
Go ahead.
they are part of Tuscany. Cortona is a larger town, and some of the U of M alumni tours that I've seen over the years have you stay in Cortona. We stayed in Pienza, which to me wasn't quite as interesting, but that's just the way it is.
But I remember, yeah, I remember those as very steep towns. They're way
Oh,
up
yeah.
there.
The hill towns are definitely, when they say they're hilly, they are hilly. And some of them, the only way you can get to them, they restrict parking and traffic and whatever in the towns. And so you end up parking down below, and then you have to hike up to the city.
Barb,
Yeah.
did you do any interactive things that they set up for you on the tour, like a cooking class or some kind of concert or something different besides walking around to the churches and museums and all that?
We did a program with local people coming to see us and talk about life, where they lived. We also did wine tasting, which I found to be, really interesting. I wasn't particularly familiar with some of the Italian wines. Being a Francophile, I, know a lot about French wines, but not so much about Italian ones. So yes, we did those kinds of things. If you prefer to be with a tour group, then I know some of the other presenters are going to talk about tour groups, the other tour groups that they have used other than the U of M alumni groups. But
the U of M actually subcontracts with these other tour groups. So
exactly. Alumni Holidays is one of the ones they frequently use. One
Yeah,
of the things.
The other nice thing about the alumni trips, to answer that question about did you do anything like cooking or that type of thing? The alumni trips often have somebody come and talk about the town, a local person. The alumni trip we did to Italy had a cooking class where they taught you how to make your own pasta. But they really some very, very interesting speakers to get you to understand the area that you're visiting.
Absolutely. And I did the only cooking class on an alumni tour that I did was in Russia. But I can imagine that an Italian cooking class would also be very, very interesting.
Barb?
Yes.
I had to step away for a little bit. This is Susan Shields. Hi. Thanks for telling us about your experiences. Have you talked about how you have chosen where to go, especially some of these offbeat places? How did you think to go to them? Or when you were driving on your own, did you just go where the roads went? Did you use do you have favorite travel guides, a brand of guides for Italy, those kinds of things?
Okay. Well, years ago when I was first traveling, I used Europe on $5 a day. So that ought to tell you. The Arthur Frommer books. More recently, I use the Rick Steves books, and I also look at the Rick Steves travel shows that are on PBS. because he gives really good descriptions and pictures and whatever of things that I'm interested in seeing. But I think that there are two kinds of travelers, or probably more than two, but two big kinds. One is the kind of traveler who wants to just get a bird's eye view of a lot of places. And then the other is the kind of person like my husband who likes to go and settle into a place and stay for a while and get to know it. And so when I've traveled with my husband, we've done things like spend 2 weeks in Rome. And that gives you a better flavor of what a place is like, as if you spend a lot of time. And although the U of M alumni tours do a good job of having somebody come in and talk, and I've always enjoyed those, personally figuring out what a place is like on your own and learning about a place, I have found to be really, really helpful. The other thing is that I have a friend that I met on my very first trip to Europe ever, who was at the time in the Italian Navy. And he lives in Trieste. And so we've kept in touch all of these years, and he's come to Ann Arbor to visit. And I've gone to Trieste to see him, and Mitch has met him, and we've been to a lot of places. He knows Venice. And so when I've been to Venice, he comes and walks us all through the back streets and whatever. So it's helpful if you have a connection, to be able to use that connection. We also were in Florence one time when someone Mitch knew from the University of Michigan was also in Florence at the same time. And he was he from Florence? I can't remember.
No. He was from that area, I think. But he was trying to think if he, I'm not sure if he was even faculty member. He was a PhD, postdoc, whatever. I met over 1,000 researchers when I worked at the university, so it's hard to remember exactly what his background was.
But he walked us around Florence and took us to a restaurant that was, really an old time restaurant. And we had an absolute feast that he orchestrated in terms of what to order and what kinds of wine go with which courses, etc. It was a little above our price range for our ordinary travel, but we did have a good time.
Then he left us there, and we had to figure out how to get back to the hotel.
What did you?
Since you've traveled so many times there, have you ever encountered problems with, I guess I'd call it like petty theft? Because Italy is known for that.
Well, I learned very early on that anything I need to carry on me is in my money belt, and they would have to undress me in order to get anything. And I never carried any more money out in the open that I could afford to lose, which really never was very much. And Mitch and I did witness, I think Mitch was with me, witness a pickpocket in Rome. We were at Trevi Fountain, and we saw this person actually, pickpocket somebody. And of course, we looked for, excuse me, let me get rid of this.
Talk about Mary.
So that was something that we quickly found the police and said, we saw this pickpocket, but of course the police, he had melted into the crowd and we didn't know. The other thing is that when we were in Florence with our good friends years ago, we were walking to our hotel, and they were not, it was their first time in Europe, and they didn't listen very well until this happened to them. But Mary had a fanny pack in front, with her passport and her money and everything in this fanny pack that she was wearing. And these gypsy kids came up to her with one of them holding a newspaper, and then the other one's in her purse underneath. And that was really scary because we were behind them and we saw what was happening, but we couldn't do anything about it. But they had a real con game going because after her purse was rifled and all her stuff was taken, then this kid appeared and said he would get our stuff back. So he ran after the gypsies and came back with all of our stuff, and then, of course, put his hand out for a reward.
Well, you're lucky.
Sounds
Thriving
like-
business.
Good system for him.
Yeah, well, they were really lucky. They were really lucky. And
They were lucky to get
course.
their stuff back. Yeah,
you only have that experience once.
right.
But
I was, go ahead.
it's very good to be prepared because we, on our first trip to Italy with the U of M trip, one couple got pickpocketed before they got out of the Naples airport. So it is a very good thing to be prepared for from the very beginning. That is a problem in Italy. That's the only experience I've had, but it really made it they took a lot of things out of their wallet and everything else that made it a difficult trip for them to recover from. So you do need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Well, in Paris at our hotel one time, we had a favorite hotel. We'll talk about it when we talk about Paris. But this woman was at the front desk complaining that she was wearing a backpack and that it had been rifled and her wallet stolen and whatever, and she was from Britain. And so the people at the desk said to her, well, what precautions are you taking? This is not something you should be doing, is walking around with your wallet in a backpack, or anybody can stick their hand in it. She said, well, I've been here for 3 days and it just happened today.
Barcelona.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay,
Barcelona is always famous for pickpockets too, but
yeah. I think it's time to go on to the next person. Thank you, Barb.
oh, you're welcome. I've got a wealth of experience for other cities too, but
Yeah,
I
can I
did-
just go ahead?
enough of me.
Yeah, I just want to throw something out from my experience there when I went 9 years ago. You were talking about wearing the money belt. And so I was there with a group of artists. There were like 12 of us, and we were at an art school there. And on the last day, I wanted to go to Cinque Terre. So there was a bus that leaves there from Florence, and it's called Florence for Fun Tour. So for $45, you get on this bus and they take you to the train that takes you to the boat, and then you're at Cinque Terre. So I had put my money belt on underneath my clothes, like you're talking about. Well, the trains were on strike till 5 o'clock at night. So we had to take an alternative route, and most of it was walking through the jungle. So by the time I got to Cinque Terre, my belt was soaking wet, along with my passport. And you know how the passport picture has like a film over it? It distorted it. And so I had a lot of problems getting through, the checkpoints with the passport after that. So that was my lesson I learned. I keep that passport where it's not going to get wet from sweat walking through the jungle.
Well, generally, I never carry my passport. It's in the safe in the hotel, and I have a copy of my passport in my money belt
Oh,
because
Okay.
nobody gets to see. The only time they ever look at your passport is, well, in Europe nowadays, wherever your entry city is, and then you never see it again until you leave until go back home.
interesting.
We're cooking with gas now, even though it's not healthy. So this is a map of lower part of Italy. Puglia, which is what I'm going to be talking about, is this region along the backside of the calf down to the heel. And I had been to Italy a couple of times before, saw everything on the west coast, everything that people typically see from, Lucca, Cinque Terre, Florence, Rome, Naples, Sorrento, the Amalfi Coast. And I have never had any experience on the east side. And so I saw this tour from Gate One Travel, And this is the first time in my life I've taken an organized tour, and I was fearful of being shepherded around like sheep, and it wasn't that bad. I mean, you had a lot of free time, which is what I really enjoyed, going off and doing your own thing, as well as seeing things that you probably wouldn't see as an individual, and learning things that you wouldn't necessarily learn unless you had a guide with you. So anyway, I flew from Detroit to Boston to Rome, and then jumped a small plane over to Bari, over in this area right here. And a close-up of this region. So our tour was confined to all the Puglia, Matera, and then over to Naples, way off the map here. But we landed in Bari. There's an airport, and I will walk you. I don't know, has anybody been to this part of Italy? It's not very well touristed. I mean, it has the longest coastline on the mainland part of Italy, excluding Sardinia and Sicily. And it has beaches, it has rocky coastline. It's just very, very beautiful. And it's essentially very flat. You have a high plateau here of just a couple thousand feet, and the rest of it's all valleys where they grow olives, wine, wheat. And so it's kind of the breadbasket for a large part of Italy. So landed in Bari, and here's another less cluttered map of this region of Puglia. And the Bari is on the water, so you have this great waterfront. You have these fishing boats that are, not just theater props, they're real live fishing boats. And these fellows pulling in squid, sea urchins. You can buy them on the spot. You can actually get them prepared on the spot. It's a working market and a restaurant there. And oops, got ahead of myself here. One of the things that Bari is really well known for in the Città Vecchio, the old part of town, is where these ladies, of which there are many up and down the alleyways and streets, making I have to say it slowly, orecchiette, little ears of pasta. And there's this one woman with a big crowd around her, carrying on conversation, cracking her knuckles, and easily gets distracted. And at some point she'll pick up here and then start rolling that again. And then she'll break off these pieces and make little ears. And I have a picture of it next here. These are what they look like when she's through with them. And you can see where the name little ears perhaps comes from. But one slide back, here's another woman, with a whole mess of stuff out in front of her operation where she's selling it. And what I found so sad was, we had a group of about 30 people in this Gate 1 travel group, and nobody but me, I felt so guilty for these women who are, doing performance art, and nobody would buy a bag of pasta. So I ended up buying a kilo, 2 pounds of pasta to carry around the rest of the morning. But strangely enough, I'm still enjoying it. It's not my favorite pasta shape. It's thick and chewy. It's not my favorite. But anyway, in other parts of Bari, you can have these piazzas with old olive trees. Some of these are claimed to be 500, 600, 800 years old. And there's a picture of another one that's outside of town that it looks like giant bonsai. Now this thing is, I've been told could be 1,200 years old. And you see some of them in the background here, just unbelievably long live trees. So more of Bali. I mean, one thing that attracted me so much to this part of the country is that there are no tourists, or very, very few tourists. And unlike Rome or Florence or Naples, where streets are very, very crowded, and you have street vendors everywhere pushing stuff in your face, Bari and all the rest of Puglia is very uncrowded. So you can walk down streets like this and enjoy yourself without having to fight a crowd. And this street just attracted to me. It's like everything else in Puglia and Italy is that they value plants and flowers, and these things are hanging from all the balconies, and it's just a very rich visual experience. And another piazza showing a mass of people here, a few hundred. But what they discovered a few years back was an old Roman road that they preserved. Even though they had to build the rest of the piazza, they couldn't restore the entire Roman road. But you see a chunk of it here, and you can see the old wagon wheels. If you've been to Pompeii, you had the wagon wheels that cut through the limestone, and so you see the same kind of path happening here. I have a great affection for Roman and Etruscan architecture and buildings, and it's what kind of really drew me to Italy in the first place. And it wasn't all the Renaissance painting, it wasn't the Vatican, it was Roman engineering and Roman architecture. It just kind of really blew me away. And so I'm really kind of drawn to that stuff. Outside of Bari is the Castel del Monte, where the Name of the Rose was filmed in large part. And it's, I don't know, about 30, 40 miles outside of Bari. It's this octagon-shaped castle that has never been very clearly defined in history as to its purpose. Was it defensive? Was it a statement of power and riches? It's actually inexplicable. Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II built it in 1240. Took him 10 years. And at one time, the inside was all clad with marble columns, marble walls, and that was all stripped out by vandals who wanted to use the marble elsewhere. And it was a magnificent building, but there's nothing in it. It's just absolutely empty. And just one more picture here that as we were leaving, the fog was rolling in, and so it was almost impossible to make out in the fog. But like everything in Italy, it's just a very rich experience. And so here, we're up here for the castle. Now we're driving down to Lecce in the south, which has been described as the Florence of the South because of all the Baroque churches, municipal buildings. Everything is rich, over the top Baroque, which I can not describe except show you a picture and say this is it. Well, this is not it, but this is an old Roman kind of amphitheater that used to seat some 15,000 people. It was built in the first century of the Common Era. Some more of this. So this is in the middle of town, kind of below grade. Another thing that Lecce is famous for are paper mache figures, and they're used. And I mean, when they end up being finished, they look, like this crucified Christ, where they have skin tone, facial features, body features, everything, but they're all made of wire and other artificial products underneath, steel posts, whatever, to give them some shape, and then they're eventually covered up with wax to give them a more human appearance. And Lecce is famous for their paper mache, and apparently they are frequently seen in churches and public buildings. And the reason they became so well known and so well established was that marble was too cheap, and it was easy to put together paper mache at a much lower cost. Here's another Roman road that they incorporated into the city street. Here's some Baroque architecture. It's over the top, ornate, and trying to think of the church, Basilica San Croce. And you have these gargoyle type figures that support the structure. Mulinetta Lecce. This is a quick tour, and we're heading down along the coast here to the very, very tip, where the Adriatic Sea kind of meets up with the Gulf of Toronto, or the Ionian Sea. This is me on the beach. It's the very, very tip of Italy. You can't get much further off the island, off the peninsula, unless you step in the water. And beautiful day. Oh my God. And then we drive along the coastline, going back up toward Lecce, and you have these beautiful rocky coastlines. You have these, and this picture wouldn't transfer from my phone properly, but it's an old tower built to spot Turks and Saracens who were always pillaging the coast back in the 1500s. And you had these on the west side of Italy too, up by Cinque Terre. You have these towers, and you burn a fire, light a fire if you saw an invasive force of people, and then they'll alert another tower, alert the people. But these were up and down the coast, and it wasn't quite Roman and it wasn't quite modern, so it's kind of in between. Here we are in Alberbello, the town of these conical houses, truly. And the town is just, as you can see from the background, just filled with these truly. And here's a close-up view. And we had as part of the tour, we had a look inside, and these are all dry laid limestone rock. There was a thing about people in Alberbello having to pay extra taxes if their house were permanently assembled. And since these did not use mortar, they were not considered permanently assembled, and therefore there was no tax on them. And these things continued for another 300 or 400 years. And they're often being bought now by people turning them into B&Bs or restaurants or souvenir shops. But this one woman gave us a tour of her house. And here's a close-up look of the dry mortar limestone. And these are just set on top of each other, no mortar. It's really quite remarkable.
Okay, I think we're running out of time here.
Okay, let me just slip through the slides here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to head from Alberbello over to Matera, which is this 10,000, 13,000-year-old continued settlement in kind of the instep of the Italian boot in Basilicata, south of Puglia. But these are cave dwellings that go back, 10,000 years, and they're built in the hillside. And here's a look inside. They can be quite lavish. Bedroom, kitchen, and all of this stuff was evidence of a geological seabed, millions of years ago. You can still see the seashells embedded in the stone. The Italian government was so embarrassed by these back in the late 40s and early 50s, they forced everybody to move out, built new housing, and then people came along and started restoring all these things into restaurants and B&Bs. And I'm leaving Puglia and Basilicata. We're over in Naples now, and I love Naples. It's a nitty-gritty, energized city, and I love it. But in Naples, you have to watch your personal belongings. I mean, this is the station we just had. And here is the train on the Circumvesuviana from Naples down to Sorrento. And you can see how crowded it is. And I've never had a problem in Naples or anywhere in Italy as far as petty crime. But you have to play it safe. You put your wallet in your front pocket. You have over-the-shoulder bag they can't grab. Your fanny pack's in front of you. These are all just normal precautions. And but I've never had a problem, and I find Italy, you know, pretty safe. I don't do stupid things and go in sketchy parts of town, but there are parts of Ann Arbor I don't go in at 1 o'clock at night, Friday night on the Diag. I mean, you can get robbed there just as easily as anywhere else. So that's my just one quick, I talked about the food, and these are just some of the dishes: clams, mussels, octopus, a whole mess of stuff at one meal, pizza, you know, more octopus, and a Campari aperitivo, along with a little snack. And so something like this in Naples on a hot day for €4 or €5 was just a nice way to spend the afternoon. So anyway, that's it. I absolutely love Italy, and I can't wait to go back. So any questions?
Well,
It was an interesting area, but you read, most people haven't been over to the heel. I have a friend that went there recently, and she said it actually she told me the civilization of Italy actually started over in the heel, and they've got some caves there that people lived in, I don't know how many years ago. So I appreciate your slides. It was very interesting.
Isn't there
The
a
only area
famous,
I've ever been to.
So what? I mean, was there a question?
No, I just said it's the only area of Italy that I've not been to.
okay, I think we should move on to the next speaker. My wife Connie is from Italy and lived there till she was 7.
Wow.
So we took some pictures of her home area, which is totally non-touristy. So this is a picture of the terrain. You know, it's quite steep, and you know, you can see the towns off in the distance there.
Right, Joe, try one thing for me just to test. On the bottom right-hand corner, there's like a little arrow that you could expand it. Oh,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, click that. Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
good.
that's better, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good.
Then hopefully you can scroll through the pictures. Try to go to the next picture. There you go. Okay. Looks
Okay,
good.
now this I believe is a picture from Connie's. They have like a family farm down to the city below. So
What's
this
the
is
name of the city?
main city nearby is Casino,
Okay,
which is is famous in World War II because it was bombed. It was a strategic area that was bombed, and it rendered it impossible to make a living there after the war to a large extent. So this is just a picture of what it looks like. I mean, it's every bit as nice as Tuscany or any of those other places. It's just not a tourist area. It's not as easy to get to. These are some of the goats on the farm. This is, I think, Connie's cousin making cheese. So they did that while we were there. I think they used the goat's milk for the cheese. These are green beans. Now, if you look at this person's hand, that's not a small person. You can see the size of the beans.
Oh.
And those are, you went up from the farmhouse up high on a hill, and there's all these beans growing up there. And they're really, really fabulous. I think they're making maybe pizza there. That's the inside of the house. And this is the porch. So this is a rural Italian living. That's Connie with her cousin. That's the public laundry area in the local town. I guess people come down and wash their clothes there. Because there's a stream that flows through the town. That used to be the main source of water. Now, this is the, this picture was taken from the town of Casino. This is the Abbey at the top. So it overlooks a strategic area. And in World War II, the Allies had to get through this area when they came up into Italy to confront the Germans. So they had to go through here, and this was a critical area. And the Americans thought that there were a lot of Germans hiding in this monastery, so they bombed it. It's been rebuilt. So that's a local area, you know, that isn't real touristy. I got a picture of Pisa here. I like this picture because most pictures of Pisa, you just see the tower in isolation. In actuality, in Pisa, there's a much bigger church here. You can see how the leaning tower is leaning a little bit. There's another picture. And I think what I remember of Pisa is this was just like the travel books show it. It looks the same. Other than that, I don't think there's too much in the city to see.
There isn't.
This is Cinque Terre. And what happened is we went to Cinque Terre and we got off at one of the cities along the train route about 10 at night. And got up to the inn, walked up, and the innkeeper said, "Your Visa card never went through. There's no room."
Oh,
So at midnight, we had to take the train to another town and stay in a hostel. We got there about 1 a.m. And then the next day we hiked back to the Cinque Terre town. So this
Hey,
is
Joe.
some of the,
Hey, Joe.
yeah.
Who are the people?
On the left is my son, and on the right is my son's wife.
Oh, thank you.
So we went with 4 of our 5 kids, I think, on this trip. So this is what Cinque Terre looks like from the top. You know, you can hike way above the towns. And as I recall, the towns are inaccessible, or for centuries were inaccessible except by boat. And now there's a train line that runs, you know, inside of this hill that connects all the towns. So it's a great place to go. There's another picture. And this is another picture of the town. You can see the cliffs are at the bottom and then the town is up there. So that's all I have. I have local area and I have Cinque Terre. And now how do I unshare my screen, Roger?
Escape.
Just click up at the top that says stop share.
I don't see anything. I'm on full. I have to get out of full mode or something. Oh, I got X. That must be it. Is that it?
Still,
Stop. Oh, there we are. Stop share. Okay.
there you go.
So, Al, did we ever get a hold of Dave or?
Yeah,
did,
he
and
came on.
He's on.
Oh, he's on.
yeah, yeah.
Why don't we just,
I lost the link.
oh, okay. Are you ready to present? We got about
Yes,
12
sir.
minutes.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So let me,
While he's signing up for that, I just highly recommend Cinque Terre. It was an area that I didn't know much about till we went there a couple of years ago, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. You can hike if you like hiking. It's got extreme hiking. It's got boats. There's actually 5 towns, and there's 2 other towns at each end. So there's almost like 7 just really, really quaint towns, all built into the side of the hills. Again, great food, great, wineries in the area. It would be I didn't know much about it before somebody told me about it, and I'm really glad that we went. And so if you don't know about it, you should look into it. It's a fabulous area.
my wife and I have done a lot of our travel with Gate One Tours. Fascinating company. Really, really enjoy them. This was to Italy. This was a different type of a setup with them. We've done Peru, Ecuador, Greece, Morocco, Western Turkey, and China, Thailand, and Ireland through them. And so this one, and all of those were group tours with a guide that stayed with us the entire time. This one, as you can see here, is a package tour through them, everything, including the airlines and all. But it's an independent one, which means everyone who took this tour did it on their own. We had a group of 30 people. We all met together in Rome, and so you'll not be part of a group tour. Will not be accompanied by a tour manager. One of the things that happens though on this kind of a tour with Gate One is that they send you the vouchers for everything. The voucher to present to the hotel. They get you from the airport to the hotel in Rome. This was a Rome, Florence, Venice trip. And then vouchers for the train, which became your ticket to get on the train. And then the vouchers for optional tours that we wanted to take. We went to Pompeii that way. The breakfast were included at the hotel, but our lunches and dinners were on us, except for the trip to Pompeii. That included lunch. And then the instructions, the vouchers for the tour guides that took us on all the tours that came with the program, with the package, told us where to meet them and what time to meet them and all. And we did that and presented that, and those were in the morning and the afternoon. We paid for some optional tours, as you can see here, the one to Pompeii and then the other one to the Roman Colosseum and the Forum. And other than that, we were on our own. Let me get out of this one. So this was our hotel. All the hotels that Gate One uses are 4-star or 5-star hotels everywhere we've been with them. This was the Hotel Monte Carlo in Rome. We went from the airport. They picked us up at the airport, met us at the airport, and dropped us off at the hotel and turned in our voucher and got our room. The next day we met with our voucher, told us where to meet at the Vatican. And
Sorry to interrupt you, Dave, but
Yes.
you can go to the next photo if you go to the right of that photo, there's a little arrow. Go to your right a little bit.
I don't get the arrow, Roger.
What do you get next?
Well, I saw it there before. Go to the right of that.
Okay.
Keep going to the right. Keep going to the right. Keep going. I see your cursor. There you go. See
Oh,
the
way
little
over
arrow?
way over on the side. Okay.
Yep.
Very
Then it'll
good.
get you the next photo.
Okay, thank you, sir. We had our voucher, told us what time to be at the Vatican, and we met our tour guide. In we went and spent 3 hours there at the Vatican with her. Then we took a taxi we had lunch and then took a taxi to our next stop. This was an optional part we took for the afternoon there in Rome, old Rome. This is the Arch of Constantine down by the Colosseum. You can see there on the right, and met our guide there and spent 3 hours with her in the Colosseum, and also going through the old Forum area. all of that. That was 3 hours. Then we were on our own for dinner in the evening. We just hiked back to the hotel. And one of the things though in Rome is it's not a walking city at all. There's not one straight street in this city anywhere. So if you're having, and then the street names are all on the buildings, and they're all kind of faded away. So we, on our way out back from the Forum to the hotel that night, we stopped every other block and asked if we were on the right street back to where we were going. Was trying to follow the map we were given.
Well, you figured it out.
But this is not laid out grid work like it is everywhere else in this country, or even like Florence is. So then we got the train. We took a bus. We had, again, our voucher told us what time to meet and who to meet downtown Rome. Get on the bus and off to Pompeii we went. Had lunch on the way. Spent 3 hours there. Again, a fascinating environment. And then following day, got on the train to Florence. Real nice ride on a high-speed train, and stayed at another 4-class hotel, the Del Nazione, right across the street from the train station.
I know where that is.
Again, this is the center square, center city of Florence, and we again, our voucher told us who to meet and where to meet at what time. Turned that in, and off we went for 3 hours this morning with the gentleman there that hired by Gate 1 to do the tour down to the Arno River. That's the Ponte Vecchio bridge. That thing is 1,000 years old, and people are still living in that bridge, hanging there on the side of the covered portion. Then the afternoon, let me go back. So after that, we had the rest of the day to ourselves in the evening. Bought tickets there in the town square and went to the Duomo Palace. We spent an hour and a half in there. What a fabulous building that is. The catacombs all down in the basement. Next day we took the train again, high-speed train to Venice. This is the train station on the Grand Canal. Right across the street, we went to the right in the picture, across the canal bridge, and there was our hotel right there across from the train station, the Hotel Carlton on the Grand Canal. Again, this was the 5-star hotel there. Breakfast was included every day. The following day, we met the tour guide here at the boat. This is right out in front of our hotel, and took the boat to out to Murano, the Murano Island for the Murano Glass Company. Very historic, very, very old glass company. Just unbelievable. You can see the kind of stuff that they can make there for you. Then took back on the boat and went around the outside of the lagoon in Venice to St. Mark's Square, and toured the waterfront there and learned all about that. So this was an optional tour. My wife and I bought tickets and did the entire palace there as well. And then we spent about 2 hours walking over at least 24 bridges and islands, just walking our way back, crossing over the canal the whole way around back to our starting point.
Well, they have arrows on the thing.
I know they do, but it's just confusing.
Any questions about Rome, Venice, Rome, Florence, Venice?
Hey, Dave, how did you find out about that tour group? I never heard of that tour group, Gate 1.
Gate 1, GATEONE.com. I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. We started with them in 2014. I went to Ireland. And I think we got a wife either found it online or we just got a booklet in the mail. The booklets come about every other month now, and with other tours and just everything we did with them was fine. We had one booked for Costa Rica for 2020. We did that in 19. And when COVID hit, that was canceled. So we rebooked with them for 21. The country wasn't letting anybody in yet. We rebooked for 22. They weren't letting anybody in the country yet. So we canceled. And because we had our travel insurance, we did the travel insurance with these folks all the time. We got a full refund. So we're still going to plan to go with them back to Costa Rica sometime down the road.
The way I found out about them is we went to India last year, and we kept, there were a lot of tourists there, and we just kept asking the tourists who they're with, and this name Gate 1 came up over and over. So that's how we found out about it.
I have a Gate 1 reservation for a river cruise, Danube River. They've got they own a couple of river boats, at least 2, maybe 3 now. They go, they do all of the European ones and other places too.
Yeah,
all over the
yeah.
world.
We went to China. Part of we flew into Beijing, and then we're there for 3 days, and then flew over to Chongqing. We got on a river boat there with them, and did the Yangtze River for 3 days, and then to Wuhan, and took the high-speed train down to Shanghai for 3 days, and then flew to Bangkok, Thailand for 3 days, and then came home.
Their pricing is very, very good.
Very
compared to
good.
The big famous, Viking river cruises and all those, who tease you with the lowest rate, and then you find out that it's going to cost a lot more for the French balcony and etc. So.
Oh.
I've used Gate 1 as well. They give you a luggage strap.
Yes, they do. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I think I will not go beyond 5:30, and I've got a couple of things here to ask about. So, I guess I'd call this the business meeting now. I'd like to thank our three panelists. I think they did a really good job, and we didn't have any trouble filling the time.